Right. Hi, I am Erhard. I am a facility operator and ice technician at Sports Road Arena. What we used to do to make sure we didn't have so much air in our water was to have really hot water, really hot. The more air on the ice, the weaker your ice. What we were doing with this unit then, it'll go from a smaller pipe to a larger space, back into a smaller pipe again. You are essentially shaking your water so that the air will come out. We used to use somewhere in the range of 70 degrees Celsius. We are currently using about 16 to 18 degrees Celsius. Have significant savings.
I work with goalies, so it's nice to have good ice for that. Don't have a lot of extra ruts or gashes in it. You don't have a lot of bumps. You don't have a lot of cutouts even when you've skated harder in the session before.
The cold water ice is so nice. I can't tell the difference that it's cold water. This ice, if it was in all the other arenas, would elevate the ice experience that skaters have.
So if you could take us back a little bit to the decision-making steps. Great.
So the first time that I saw this, mechanically deaerated water idea, it was in an approved report that happened before I came to the city of Kitchener. So my predecessor had a report, council approved it, and it was part of our corporate climate action plan. And so it was listed. In theory, the budget was there. It was moving forward. My sense is that our office at the time did not engage any of the staff that would actually be involved in the change. They may have engaged the energy manager, but that was it. And so when I came to Kitchener in 2021, I had the document and could see this thing listed, but honestly had no idea what it was. And I got a call from Ryan, who is a manager at one of our arenas. And there was an opportunity that he was going to be going to a conference that was focused on arenas. And through discussion, it seemed like it might be a good idea if our energy manager could go. So I checked in with our energy manager to ask if going to this conference was something he could handle on the back end at home, and then started to make action happen so that he could go. And so it was the first time that the energy manager and an arenas manager would go to this conference together. And when they came back, what I heard from Ryan was that our energy manager, Luke, had made an impact. He was probably one of the only folks that was an energy manager in the room, but he was asking questions that folks hadn't necessarily asked before. And he was gaining respect in that community through that conference. So they came back and they had a bit of an instant relationship. They had not really otherwise, their work hadn't yet intersected. Luke was quite new. And so that first piece of that relationship building between those two departments and those two individuals was really key. It also involved senior leadership approving that these individuals could go with this kind of intention. So when I could see that this relationship was starting, I was wondering if it was time to revisit the mechanically deaerated water thing, because it was in the report in 2017, but nothing had happened. And so, I kind of put it out there with arena staff and with Luke, our energy manager. And Luke said, well, let's see. So the first thing that we did, as I recall, Paul, and you can correct me if I'm missing a step, was we thought there was enough potential trust to enter into the conversation, just simply a conversation. So for Fanula and I, we come at this work from a very strategic perspective, kind of in the ivory tower. And Luke will come at from energy management. Paul and Ryan come from it really as direct supervisors of those who are involved in the change. So operationally and strategically, we've got different views and approaches to the work and different mandates. So as we started to talk about it, Luke was aware that another municipality had already done this. And so we wanted to see, could we go? Would the arena staff be willing to go? So as I recall, Paul and Ryan came in separate vehicles, and Luke and I did as well. And we decided that we were going to travel, I with Paul and Luke with Ryan. And so we did. And truly, I would say that was the beginning of building a relationship across the strategic and operational kind of divide. So we traveled to the other city and we met with their peers at the back end of the arena with their ice resurfacer and their little black doohickey on the wall. And it was the first time that there was a conversation. On the way there, it was pretty much that this wasn't going to happen. In my words, it would have been like, no way in hell are we going to do this, but we'll appease you. Let's go for a ride. That was kind of my take on it. I just need to see Paul's face in case he's shut down already. No, he's still smiling, so okay. When we got there, what I observed was that, Ryan and Paul were meeting with their peers. And for their peers, they were able to receive the questions that Ryan and Paul had, and also that Luke had, but he probably had less questions because this was very much an operational change that needed to happen. And so, as I said, as we went down, it was kind of like, yeah, no, we're not doing this, but like, whatever, we'll go. But something happened when we were there. And I don't know, Paul, if you want to describe, for you, what it was like in that, in meeting in the, I don't know, I call it the back end, but you'll have a better name for where we were at that city.
Just in their blood room. Their Zamboni Bay, if you will.
Yeah. And did a shift, so I observed that a shift happened for you and Ryan. And I don't know, do you remember? Like, I know what I observed, but what's your take? What happened?
My experience with the unit before was just through colleagues at different municipalities. So when it first came to us, my biggest opinion was just, listen, I understand the reasoning, as long as it doesn't affect our operational side of things, and our quality. So my biggest statement to our director and to the energy management team was, our biggest asset that we sell is ice at our arenas, right? Like that's what people pay to come and rent. And if it affects it in a negative way, then we're going the wrong direction. If it affects it in a positive way, then yeah, I'm all for it. So that was my biggest thing. So kind of talking to the staff that are actually going to be affected. And what happens with that is, if you don't talk to the frontline staff, especially with regards to the refrigeration side of things and how you maintain your ice rink, they weren't able to adapt right away. So they were doing a lot of adjustments on the back end to try and make the ice better again. So that's where it kind of came from for me. So going to, I think we went to, it was the West End Arena in the city of Guelph, and talking to their experienced operators. We ask certain questions, ice quality stuff, flooding, what do you find with different things? And they gave it good reviews. They obviously said, yeah, there's going to be employees that are just against it. You're going to have guys that have been working in the industry for 35 years that, I use hot water and hot water is all I use. So we knew it was going to be a challenge. If we were going to implement this, it was going to be a challenge to change people's mindset. But yeah, going there, talking to those staff, I wasn't necessarily closed off with it to start with when you first came to us, but it definitely, when I went there, I was like, okay, like I'm definitely willing to give this a shot. Like as long as we implement it the way we want from a frontline standpoint, and we can test it and actually go through it, use data. That way we can even show frontline staff, like, here is the data, right? You can't go against the data. So yeah, like the visit definitely, it was like, yeah, okay, let's try this. Let's try it for sure.
So Paul, from the approach that Anna Maria and her team took, did you feel, or did they make you feel seen and valued and validated in your role as an operations manager?
Yeah, I mean, they definitely didn't. I never felt like they were like, no, we're doing this. I felt like they were respectful in the fact that, Anna Marie and Luke were like, we don't flood the ice. We don't look after refrigeration, which was awesome. Makes us feel better about it. We're not being pressured. But they came to us from an energy management point of view, which 100%, right? If you can save my big thing is, yeah, if we can save money, save energy, while not decreasing the um, surface, the ice surface, and its and our product, then yeah, I'm for it as well. So the way they came to us, it was very open. It was very um, discussion oriented, not this is what we're doing, figure it out kind of thing, which goes a long way for us. So that in turn was like, okay, if we're gonna do it, like Ryan and I knew we have guys or individuals that, have been here for a while. They're gonna be against it right off the hop, but there was a way that we needed to present it to them, to be like, we're gonna try it. Like it was never when it first came in, it was never this is what we're doing. We're gonna stick with it forever until forever and ever and ever. It was let's try this. And let's check the numbers. And then
Mhm, mhm,
my numbers don't lie. So yeah, it was definitely something I wasn't like opposed to. I wasn't when it first came to us, I wasn't like, well, yeah, let's do it right away. It was okay, if we're gonna do it, I know something along those lines is gonna eventually come down the pipe. Like you gotta try and save money and energy, especially with natural gas, electricity, that kind of stuff. But as long as I was more interested as long as Anna Marie and her team would work with us to make it so that we made sure it was implemented the right way, then I was all for it.
mhm. I think they were lucky, right? I mean, and I want to bring it back to Anna Marie because that first visit proved that there was an open mindset, but it needed hand holding might be the wrong word, but it needed respect. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
It needed respect,
Yep.
and so that first door opened. What was next?
In trying to reduce resistance, that the first step that we talk about is listening and understanding objections. So I made a list of what I heard. And I think for folks like Fanula and I and the energy manager, I think we need to, in that first step, show up, right? And go where the people are. And so that's what we did. The next step is to focus on what and let go of the how. So this is what I heard of the what. And Paul touched on at least one. So there was concerns about poor ice quality, in particular paint migration, ice hardness, brittleness, and cracking. They were concerned about user complaints with regards to poor ice quality. And so really needing to recognize that ice is a product, it is a service we deliver, and that those who are making it are absolute professionals. They know what they're doing, and their service is valued by the community. They didn't want user experience to suffer. There was concern that less experienced operators may not be able to make the shift. There was, we heard potentially 3 to 4 minutes more time to fill the ice resurfacer. And so we noted it, right? So in this step, we're just noting the what. We're not trying to fix it. I am just, as a project manager, observing what is arising from people's experience and in their concerns. And so then one of the questions was, would we need to account for this in their workflows? I was thinking, in my mind, worst case scenario was if we have these 10-minute breaks in programming to resurface the ice, are we going to have to shift how we sell the ice? That was real. We were prepping the people who book the ice to be able to to know about that. We were prepping staff to start to think about how long does it take them, thinking about what the relationship is between operators on different shifts, because if it was going to take longer, one way to sabotage someone's work was not to fill the tank up and have it ready to go. So these were things that were swirling around. I think, yeah, we didn't know if we had to change any of the ways we scheduled the operators and their breaks as well. Did the tank size need to change? And what about set point temperatures? So that's the itemized list of the things that I heard that were concerns. And so I needed to really think about all of these factors as we move forward. Now, there were a couple conditions outside of our project team who we've kind of mentioned or you've met. So one of them is I had been given the opportunity to take our corporate climate action plan kind of across the organization. So we had done our inventory, we knew where energy costs were, we knew where, who are our big spenders in a sense and where a lot of greenhouse gas emissions were coming from. So I was able to tell a story about our greenhouse gas emissions in a way that hadn't been told before. So first, did that with senior leadership. And then, so corporate leadership, so our general managers. So then they really understood, whoa, they hadn't heard the story that way before. Then to senior leadership, so director level across the organization. From there, the director of sport asked me to take the story to his team of all of the managers within his portfolio of sport. So then we could tell the same story, but focus in on how arenas are a really important key piece in this greenhouse gas emissions. We could also change the story to be how expensive they are in terms of energy consumption, and also tell the story about what the future projections are for climate in our area. So we will be seeing significantly more number of days that are above 30 degrees. And those kind of, so these strategic conditions were created so that then also we had a new strategic plan in place, and someone, we don't know where this came from, they said, you're going to come out with 2 business cases. And so for Fanula and I, we're looking at like, wisdom it was their idea that they would deliver on a business case. We chose to work together, and we agreed we would work together closely in trying to make a business case happen. That's the story to that point of your original question, Florian.
So now you had this long list of objections, essentially. So what do you do with that? Like, how do you remove these barriers?
Yeah. So what did we do? One other piece to mention is that with the climate projections, so one of the steps is to create hope, and I don't really deal in hope, but I do deal in a lot of fear and guilt. And so, I could see that with the projections, it was going to get even harder to maintain ice quality throughout the entire year, because we are also going to see very few nights, very few days that are below -15. So no matter how we looked at this, so it was the first time that I was trying truly to instill some fear about our ability to be resilient in the face of climate change and deliver ice. And no matter what, it was going to be more expensive if we couldn't do this more efficiently. And what I really wanted to do, sorry, Florian, was to have user experience. I wanted to track user experience. So I had researchers out of UW ready to work with me. But in-house, there was really a lot of fear about coming out of the gate with this, and that real risk of users knowing something was different and really experiencing, the only possibility our minds so often go to negativity, right? Like poor ice quality. And so I walked away from, I had the funding for it. I walked away from doing direct user experience before and after the pilot, because the relationship was really important to me. And I could see that this was pushing amping up the potential strain, and it was too much. And so the value of that would have been great, but it wasn't worth all the traction in our relationship we had made. And so I backed away from that. However, my understanding, and Paul will know best, there were, 2 separate groups of individuals who, one from hockey and one from figure skating, who instantly, the first day they were on the ice, knew something was different and asked about it. And it was not in a bad way. So our operations staff would not say, that the ice is better. I would say, from my observation, at least the comments that did come back instantly, that the fact that they went to find the management staff to talk to them, and they were regular users, like daily, and every facility we have, particularly the figure skaters. And so, there was that feedback, but it wasn't in a, the way that I really wanted it to be, was a social science, like actual study to parallel this project. Qualitative, because we wanted to have that kind of, feedback about their sense of the ice quality. And I think we would have included, like a Likert scale, for them to comment about what they think the quality is like, and then, follow up. And so we were prepped to have researchers on around the ice, and then meeting with patrons, and it was possible, but it was a strain, to the point that we had gotten. And so, as is often the case, we've 2 projects now where I'm walking away from the socially oriented, data. Paul, you probably had direct experience with the feedback from users. The one, I think, so I'll say it was, I think instantly they said the puck wasn't as sticky.
I didn't deal with, so we have a hockey academy down at Sports World that has it in. I dealt I didn't deal with them so much as in just our public skaters. We have public skating here during the day every couple days during the week. Um, they noticed that it was smoother at the time. We didn't go out and tell people that we were doing it, so for them to come to us was interesting, especially for my end. Again, I came in thinking, I don't know, like I don't know about the product. We're trying it. So when they came to me, I was like, oh, that's interesting. So, but we always monitor the temperatures. They came saying it was, um, they felt it was smoother. They could glide better at the time. So yeah, that's what the feedback we were getting.
And staff commented on stuff too. So I don't know. The snow that deposits by where you sit when you sit on the side, like I don't know, in the timeout box, I don't know, or when you're the team, you're sitting there, you're moist and warm. And there's more snow, I think, when you're by that on that part of the ice. And I remember staff saying there's less snow. I don't know if any of that is the appropriate language.
I think there wasn't talking to certain staff members, like while they were doing, just their regular floods and after games and stuff, they wouldn't get as much, or they weren't noticing. Like typically when you flood with cold water, because you have so much air, it's very snowy, right? Just because you have the air content, so like the skate marks and the gouges and stuff leave a lot more snow on it, and they didn't notice that, which would lead to there being less air in it than cold water typically has, right? So the signs were pointing to it was doing what it was meant to do.
Okay.
Another thing noted that was feedback from one of like the public users was that they thought that they noticed they didn't have to sharpen their skates as frequently. Like they could go about an extra 5 to 10 hours longer before sharpening them. So that must have been they must have observed that for a while. But I
Yeah.
thought that was an interesting thing that was noted.
The fact that they know, like that they're,
That's
like,
yeah.
so these folks that are noticing are, yes, public users, but obviously this person knows their skates, they know the ice, they're frequented, and they can come back with that. Like, it's interesting.
And you're flooding at around 60 Fahrenheit compared to 140 before, is that correct?
Yeah, we're in between. Between the two different places we have Sports World and here, they're in and around the 65 range, in and around there. We stay within the range that comes with the unit, like for the piece that we put on the wall. If we want to make adjustments, in the summer, like when we have summer ice, we'll make adjustments, but we make adjustments on one thing first, as you do. You don't make three different adjustments because you don't know what's helping, what's not helping. So if we do change the water, we'll change it down a bit in the summer, that kind of stuff.
Right.
Do you have any feedback from hockey or like shinny playing occupants in terms of how they've noticed the ice, especially related to pucks?
So I'll just comment on the first thing, that the stickiness. So the stickiness of the pucks is something that would be like an indicator for folks in general. And is it at this place, Paul, where there is the school, right? Like you go to a special high school.
World.
Okay, so there's like special
World,
high school where you go to learn, like in high school, but you're also there because you are teetering on being like the best in hockey locally. And so, Paul, what was your experience from that in your arena?
It's called Victus, so it's like a hockey academy. So you pay to go there and it's very hockey focused. So you're on the ice a couple times a week while you're doing your schooling. I think they do grades 5 to 12. Anyways, yeah, they talked about the puck moving a lot better. In the video, the goalie coach was talking, and he was talking about ruts and stuff like that, which was one of my main concerns as well. Typically with hot water, you have 140-degree Fahrenheit water, let's say, it kind of melts the top layer, right? And it creates that bond in the ice and fills it in. So he wasn't noticing that the ruts were staying. They were filling in totally fine. So that was something to track. I don't think I could talk to KMHA. I believe we did talk to some KMHA coaches. I'd have to go back in our notes, to be honest with you. But I know Victus was our one of our main contacts for this.
Okay,
and
sounds good.
They're our main clientele base, right, at that arena. So
yeah, they're there.
There's all the
Yeah,
time.
they're the school year, so they're still there. They go
Uh,
until the end of June, and then they're gone for
yeah.
the summer, and they come back, and they're on the ice Mondays to Thursdays. Couple rentals throughout the day. Like I think they're on 3 different times, type of thing. So
Being closer to that change, like I also knew that the most important person in the change was the direct supervisor of those who were making the change. But I knew that specifically. So I knew that that Paul and Ryan were very important to the project in general. When I had the change management training and realized that if the direct supervisor is on board and actively engaged, you're 6 times more likely to have a positive outcome. I was like, okay, Anna Marie knows this intuitively. Now she has the Prosci 2022 study that says that. But someone in senior leadership made that happen for me and others that are involved in a project that's called the Kitchener Utilities Clean Energy Strategy, right?
Mhm.
So it has to, internally, these mechanisms, I think, come top down, and then bottom up is me, trying to embed it, even though it isn't. A favorite, like, and we didn't talk too much about it because it was just like, please, like, but I don't know, Paul, do you have a sense of what your counterparts and folks in your area need? If there was anything externally that could be done?
uh for the most part, they like I think being an operator in their past, just obviously operators on the call, you just don't want someone coming in telling you how to do your own gig.
Mhm.
I don't go to an electrician and tell him how to wire a house. So, I don't want someone coming to me and telling me what's best for the ice. It's no different than using a product to clean or a product to do a service. So for me, I'm all for change. Like if it's the right way. I had change management in school, so I knew when it came around to me, I said, I knew if this is something the city really wants to do, then let us do it in a way where we can not necessarily get buy-in, but have trust from the workers up front to be like, okay, let's run a pilot. Let's see if it works or not. Not necessarily just we're going to put it in and then we have to figure out a way to deal with it kind of thing, right? You can't do it that way. You have guys that have been working in the industry that have hammered out how their ice arena works. Everything, like there's so much to creating a perfect ice sheet. You're dealing with humidity, you're dealing with different temperatures throughout the year, all that kind of stuff. So, you know, our frontline staff are good. Some are still wary of the product, which, I'm not going to knock them for it. You do something for 35 years. You've only been doing it differently for the past year and a half too. Yeah, still, it's still working with the product. I still think too, it's realistically, you got to do it for more than 1 year. You want to go through the different seasons. Like if you keep ice in the summer, um, the first summer you go through with it, you're learning all your temperatures. You're learning where you want to put your set points for your ice, and all that stuff as you go through it. So then the second season, if you log that data, you've got a good base point. So you're constantly trying to find the best position. So, which is what we do. I don't know if I answered your question, but
Yeah, not to some degree for sure. I think we have time for one more question if there was any other question in the room at this point. And if not, then my question would be in terms of making it stick. Like what's in there? Like what's in like any very conscious thoughts, actions on your part, Enemy, and maybe also for you, Paul, to keep the change, because that's usually very hard, right? People try out, oh yeah, okay, but then habits creep in and it reverts us back.
The technical side of how to make ice, but they also know their people. They know their staff. They're not like removed from their staff. And so I also saw the respect from them to their staff. I think that is part of creating a condition where something does stick. And I think they also respect them. And so that's one of the key things. We also worked with the operator. So as we were ready to deploy, we went back and did what happened at at Guelph, they went to Guelph, the operators went to Guelph, and then we also had a session where I came in and talked about like kind of the strategy, in the flood room, so that people understood why we were, in part my area, why we were doing this. So that alignment to the organization, because I think that operationally is often a piece that's missing. People are doing something, but they don't get like who cares or why. They just can see the risks. So those are a couple things I observed in terms of making it stick. I don't know if anyone's like tried to bypass the system or if that's even an option, but I do hear that that's, you want to eliminate that opportunity for bypassing. Is there anything, Paul, that you would observe that's making it stick for staff?
I think, they're not afraid to come to us with communication. If they feel like something's not working, then Ryan and I are pretty game to, try and find a solution rather than just either saying no to the system or yes to the system. I think that's it, just communicating with them and figuring out, okay, what do we need to do to make it work, if they're finding something that they're not getting the quality of ice, then okay, then what has changed? And then let's see if we can make some adjustments, that kind of stuff. For the most part, we've been running it at two facilities for 2 seasons now, I think, or thereabouts. So we've gone through like starting from scratch on the concrete floor with it at both of those facilities. So for the most part, the guys are working with it now. I don't think I've seen or heard anybody bypassing it. Now I'm not here at 10 o'clock at night, so if they do, it's also difficult for them to do. But we also entrust our operators too. Like we didn't fully get rid of the hot water. We still need hot water and an arena flood bay to deal with other stuff. You want to clean your sill plate, you want to do some other things, clean out your augers and stuff like that. So you got to trust them at some point. You can't hold their hand through the whole thing, but for the most part, the guys are pretty good.
Beginning. So what's the turnkey, the road trip?
That would be to Paul. Would it be to Paul?
Yeah, for me, again, working in arenas forever. Hot water is what you did. So, and my experience, not just with REALice, like there's other systems that do the same thing, that deaerate the water mechanically. In my experience before talking to Guelph, it had been negative comments from a lot of operators. Now a lot of those operators were guys that have been doing it forever, so I wasn't fully opposed to it, but at the same time, I wasn't necessarily asking for it. I can put it to you that way. But when I talked to the lead hand at West End and talked to the operators that were using it on a day to day, they weren't like, it works right away. And they weren't like everybody just bought in. They were like, yeah, like, at first when it came in, there's some adjustments to make and that kind of stuff. But like, if you stick with it and you find the right set points and you find a way it works for your facility, then yeah, it can be successful. So at that point, it was like, okay, then I'm willing to try it. Right? I'm not showing up and someone telling me like, oh no, it's there because we were forced to do it. So,
and I think from my experience of the road trip, I remember Luke, we got there a bit early and he said, this isn't happening. It's not happening. They're not, in a sense, budging. It's not happening. And I'm like, okay. So then we divided, traveled there. But on the way back, I was like, whoa, wait. And that had nothing to do with me or Luke. That was peer to peer and really seeing that. And then the one guy had never worked on any other ice, like because all of the arenas are on this water, and so any arena he's worked at for however many years, he's like, I don't see any issues from his perspective. So it was very valuable. At least my observation, it was pivotal.